Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today we've got for you my favourite video of the week, your favourite video of the week. It's the Gameweek 32 buy, sell, keep, avoid transfers video for you guys right up in your faces. Looking forward to this, guys, as I always do. Hope you are too. So yeah, if you do like the video, like the video. If you do, it really helps the channel a lot. And if you're new around here, of course, subscribe as well. But before we get on to the buys and sells, the keeps and avoids, quick word from our sponsors today, and it is, of course, sponsored by OneFootball. Now, for those of you who don't know what OneFootball is, it's a great app slash website for all things football. I personally use OneFootball to check out lineups, scores for Premier League games, other games, European games that I might not necessarily be watching, and sometimes even, you know, if I want to clarify some information about the game, I could check it out on the app. Really super easy to do. It's also great for football resources, news, transfer rumours. We know we're coming up to the summer transfer window, guys, so there'll be a lot of stuff like that in. So if you're interested in keeping up to date, check it out, completely free. My link is in the description. Helps out the channel. Go for it, guys. Why not? So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players that you probably have and should keep. And avoids are players you probably don't have but should avoid. You guys know the drill by now. Hopefully most of you guys know the drill by now. But yes, before we do get into the buys and sells, the keeps and avoids, I just want to say, the legend Jesse Lingard, he is always a buy. He's always a buy. Don't even doubt it. Back your boy. I'm not even going to, I'm going to really try not to mention Jesse Lingard in this video because it's kind of unnecessary. If you don't have Lingard, you got to buy him. So I'm not going to mention him again in this video. We're going to talk about some slightly less obvious options because he is that obvious, isn't he, guys? So our first buy for the game week is Heung-min Son. I know this is probably not as differential as a lot of the people I usually put in this list. About 40% of you watching this will probably already have Son already, but that still leaves 60% of you who won't have him. And that kind of includes all of you guys who have sold him recently. And to be fair, I've kind of put him in my keep list for a while now, awaiting this game week. But the double game week is here. Spurs play Everton, who typically have been a little bit rubbish in defence. I mean, they had to play 4 centre-backs just to keep a clean sheet against Brighton last night. And then you've got Southampton, who are just in absolute tragic form. After Kane, who is the one Spurs player you would want in your team now? For me, that's Heung-min Son. There's no doubts about it. It's so obvious. He's kind of been fantastic for spells this season. He's had an injury problem recently, which has kind of made his stats look a little worse than they actually are. If you look at his stats per 90, it looks a little bit better. So 0.74 big chances per 90, 0.65 expected goal involvements per 90. That times two full games, that looks quite nice. You probably expect him to get at least 1 goal contribution over the course of 2 games. We know he likes to outperform his stats as well a little bit, so that's quite nice. The only goal scorer against Manchester United was, of course, Son, so that's a real nice boost, isn't it, in confidence? And perhaps more importantly, he's one of the few players who's actually nailed on in that Tottenham Hotspur team, or at least one of the few we'd be interested in terms of fantasy Premier League. I think this double game week is going to be a little bit pointless unless you have at least 2 Spurs players. Otherwise, it may as well not be a double game week because everyone's going to have and captain Kane. So that's not really going to affect your rank at all. If you own Kane, you captain him, even if he scores a hat-trick, not really going to help you very much, to be honest. So we kind of have to look a little bit elsewhere if we want to take full advantage of the double. And Son seems like the most eligible bachelor, a good, sensible place to start. After that, after Kane, after Son, you're probably struggling a little bit to find a good nailed FPL option. Maybe you look for Lloris, maybe Lucas Moura, Reguilon, possibly if Ben Davies doesn't return. But from the last thing I read, Ben Davies is due to return by the weekend. Maybe he plays against Southampton, you never know. Reguilon has been playing pretty badly recently, so you would imagine if Davies is back, and I don't know if he is going to be back ready or not, you would imagine that maybe Reguilon plays one of the games and Davies plays the other. Who knows? But, guys, if you don't have him already, go and buy it, Son. So my second buy is Greenwood. You guys will know that if the first of my buys is kind of heavily owned, I like to try and mix it up for the second buy to be a bit more of a differential. And the Greenwood is a great differential, you know, 2% owned. He's in good form. He's not nailed, but he has started 4 of Manchester United's last 6 Premier League games. And even in the Spurs game at the weekend where he came off the bench, he scored a goal and he's assisted. So he's, you know, a real impact player style. We do like that. Manchester United as well. They have a great fixture against a potentially popeless Burnley next. That's really nice, isn't it? Then they've got Leeds. Then kind of mixed fixtures till the end of the season, but nothing that stands out as particularly difficult. But in the immediate term, you might think about investing a little bit in some Manchester United players, particularly if you don't have any other Manchester United players. You could perhaps go for a Manchester United player now. Now, there are two things I like, or two kind of sides that I like about Greenwood in particular, and why I would be considering him as a differential in my team. Firstly, with Martial injured for the rest of the season, this is going to mean that United will need their backup strikers. Now, Cavani is probably the first name that springs to mind when you think of backup strikers to Martial, but Cavani's not going to play every single game, which means there is going to be a few opportunities for Greenwood to play as the main striker. And even for those games where Greenwood isn't the main striker, well, I'm sure you would agree that he's kind of United's best right winger as well. Playing with Cavani, if he is on the right wing, that's only going to make Greenwood better as well. So my point is, with Martial out, this only increases Greenwood's chances of playing and more importantly, starring. In the immediate term, I believe Dan James is still carrying a knock too. And the other reasons I like Greenwood is because of his form at the end of last season. At the end of last season, he was basically an essential FPL pick. Maybe he can recapture the end of last season again this season. Maybe he's an end of the season type player. We'd quite like that. He's got a fair few points over the last couple of games, hasn't he? Is he going to be trusted in the same way? I think if he's playing at the top of his game, which he should be, because Manchester United need to get into the top four, or at least secure their place in the top four, I suppose. He's going to be trying to secure himself a place in Gareth Southgate's England Euro squad. Could be a huge final run-in for Mason Greenwood, and it's a differential. You would be going in on Greenwood early, which sometimes can make the difference. Sometimes it's better to jump on a player early. That's how you make the real gains, by jumping on a player before they explode. The signs have been there. In this final run-in, we kind of have to look for those players who have a lot to play for still in the season, and Greenwood definitely matches that criteria. On to some sells, and we're going to start off with Cancelo. Time to sell Cancelo again. To be fair, you could pretty much apply this to the whole City defence. Cancelo, Diaz, Stones, whoever you have. You could even go as far as to say sell any City player you have, full stop. The reasons are kind of twofold, really. So firstly, City blank in Game Week 33, so you're not going to miss them in that game week. Other fixtures are kind of mixed for Man City, but it doesn't really matter anyway. The huge problem is the rotation. I've been saying for a while that it's time to hop off City as long-term options, because Champions League is the priority for City. They're basically, already won the league. Rotation is going to be a huge issue for pretty much anyone other than Ederson. Ederson's probably the only player who's going to be saved. We kind of got that, as actual physical proof in Game Week 31 at the weekend. How many casualties from rotation did we have at the weekend? We had, KDB, Diaz, Gundogan, Foden, Mahrez, you could even say Rodri, players who we assumed were kind of rotation-proof. They're kind of no longer rotation-proof, and this is kind of really worrying for owners. Man City players are expensive. Do you really want to pay all that money for a player may only play every other game kind of thing? Players who will often come off the bench with these one-pointers. People will often say, well, with City players, it's kind of worth the risk. When they do play, they get a lot of points, so it's worth it. But the risk has kind of gone from a 75% chance of your player starting to now, 50% chance. So even for those major players. So for example, with Ake and Laporte both back in competition for those centre-back positions, Diaz and Stones aren't nearly safe. And the reason I picked out Cancelo is because previously he'd been playing a lot as a left back. I think that time has ended a little bit, which takes away a lot of opportunities for Cancelo to play. Pep's kind of been preferring Mendy, Zinchenko at left back. So it's maybe a bit harsh me picking out Cancelo here, but of the City defenders, I do think he's one of the safer sells. When he does play, he's not even creating as much as he did. City's defence are getting worse and worse. You could say that Walker is sometimes preferred, maybe because City aren't playing their strongest team in the Premier League. That might be a reason why their defence is getting worse as well. Who knows? Maybe Cancelo plays at the weekend, gets a nice 6-pointer. But long term, think about it, guys. I'd honestly be surprised if Cancelo plays more than 3 games between now and the end of the season. And that's not really good enough for your money. My next sell is Ward-Prowse. Again, this could really apply to any Southampton players, but I know JWP is kind of the most popular of their players. And trust me, guys, I'm not just saying this because he missed a penalty at the weekend, though I'm sure that makes him a lot easier to sell, doesn't it? But Ings, Che Adams, any Southampton defender that you're for some reason holding on to, they can all get in the bin. They can all get in the bin, basically. Southampton, they're just in some really bad form. They've got nothing to play for in the Premier League for the rest of the season. They're probably safe from relegation at this point. They're not going anywhere near European football. What this usually means is that some youth players will start to be fielded, causing a bit of awkward rotation. But more importantly, it means the team might not be as motivated mentally to succeed. And we kind of saw that against West Brom yesterday on Monday. That was a kind of a classic example of a team with everything to play for in West Brom against a team with nothing to play for in Southampton, which kind of gives us some surprising results, even though really, if you kind of think about what's at stake, it's not as surprising, is it, guys? Southampton also don't play in Game Week 33. It's fine to have a couple of players in your squad that aren't playing in Game Week 33, but really, you want those players to be those useful Spurs players, not the Southampton players. Southampton also might rotate a bit in Game Week 32, maybe prioritise in the FA Cup game this weekend they've got as well. But back to James Ward-Prowse, midfield slots, super valuable at the moment. There's plenty of better options for cheapish midfielders. You know, you've got Jota, Bowen, Lucas Moura as maybe a double game week differential, and of course there's one other cheap midfield player. Guys, I said I wasn't going to mention him again in this video, but I kind of have to. The GOAT, Jay Lings. Ward-Prowse to Lingard. If you've got Ward-Prowse, you can move him to Lingard. That's got to be the easiest transfer a man can make. Do it. On to some keeps. We're going to start you off with Watkins. I think you're going to have to go for Iheanacho if you're going to sell Watkins. That's really the only place I would go from Watkins in terms of a transfer. Iheanacho, obviously, a fantastic shout at the moment. But aside from that, aside from our big Niger boy Nacho, keep Watkins, guys. There isn't really any other forwards within the same price range that are that interesting. And you could maybe say, okay, let's spend a little bit more money, go for Lacazette or Cavani. You could say maybe downgrade to Vidra. Honestly, I'm not sure that would be worth it anyway. Watkins is still shooting a lot. He's still getting in the right positions to score. Maybe his goals have been a little bit dodgy, tap-ins, goalkeeper errors, but he's still got 2 goals in 2, and you get those goals by being in the right places. I think he even got all 3 bonus points, didn't he, against Liverpool at the weekend? He's still, you know, playing 90 minutes every game, which is obviously great. We've got this situation where Aston Villa have this extra game against Crystal Palace. No, against Everton, sorry. Well, I don't know why I thought of Crystal Palace, but they've got this extra game against Everton that needs to fit in somewhere. So they're guaranteed a game, double game week at some point between now and the end of the season. Quite a nice fixture as well. So if you sell Watkins now, and you know the double game week is announced in a couple of weeks' time, are you going to suddenly want Watkins back? You're going to regret the fact that you sold Watkins? Probably. And if you think you'll want to play it back, then technically it's costing you 2 transfers to take him out and back in again. So this is not a 1 transfer move, this is a 2 transfer move if you think about it in the long term. Could even cost you a -4 if you get in other problems with your team. Now, maybe some of you are thinking Watkins versus City, that's an awful fixture. And yes, it kind of is. Look at your team. Could you possibly bench Watkins for this one and then play someone else for this game week? Bring Watkins back in for game week 33 against West Brom, maybe. Or, you know, at the same time, City, they're not playing their first team. They've conceded a couple of goals recently, far more than previously anyway. They're no longer the best defence in the league, if you like. Who knows? Maybe keep Watkins in your starting 11. He could possibly nick something. After that, you know, the Villa fixtures look pretty good. So I would really strongly consider keeping Watkins. Next keep is Bale. This is a bit of a weird one, and if it wasn't for this double game week, Bale would be a sell for sure. But I do think because Spurs have a double game week, unless you're doing a straight swap to Son or something, which could be a good move, maybe just keep Bale. So let me try and explain why. So I think we can all agree that Bale is no longer first choice for Spurs. He had a couple of good games a little while ago, went completely off the boil, looked poor, got dropped. Will he get another chance before the end of the season? Yeah, I think maybe he will, but in any individual game, you probably wouldn't bet on it at that exact moment, would you? So what we do know is from his sub appearances and his presence on the bench is that he's not been frozen out of the squad or anything like that. He's still part of the rotation of the team, right? And I think the word of the day here is rotation. So Spurs have 2 fixtures in game week 32. The first is on Friday, the next is the following Wednesday, and then just a couple of days after that, on Sunday, Spurs play their League Cup final game against Man City. Now, you would probably say that Spurs will want to field their best 11 for that League Cup final game. They haven't won a trophy in forever. This is going to be big for them. So if they want to play their best team for the League Cup final, that means, or that very well could mean, that there might be a few rotations, a few rests of some of their better players for Spurs' second Game Week 32 fixture versus Southampton. Now, I don't think the spine of the team, players like Kane, Son, Højbjerg, Lloris, I don't think they're going to be rested. I think they're safe. But the players that are typically rotated anyway, like the defenders, like whoever's playing, behind the striker on the right wing, these players can actually come in for the Southampton game, which is by far the easier game of the two games, right? Like I said earlier, Southampton, terrible form, nothing to play for. If Bale gets a cameo appearance against Everton, 1 point against Everton, and then he starts against Southampton, we're kind of looking at 3 points as a base, and then we can kind of hope he can grab a goal contribution from there. It's totally possible. It's totally plausible. So if you have other areas of your team that you think you'd quite like to improve or switch up, honestly, I would not put pressure on yourself into selling Bale. No, I would not buy him, but I would maybe see what could happen this game week if you've got other areas in your team that you actually might like to improve instead. Keep him. On to some avoids, and here is the knee-jerk of the week, maybe the controversial one of the week, but hear me out, guys. Try and hear me out. I did speak about this a little bit on stream last night because, obviously, last game week, guys, I told you, sell Dallas. Usually, if I say sell or avoid a player and then that player smashes it out the park, I will come out, I will say, sorry, I got this one wrong, completely understandable. This is honestly not one of those situations. It's really hard to understand sometimes, but in FPL, you really have to judge the decision and not the outcome. The decision you make before, not the outcome after. It's very easy to judge, be captain hindsight and judge the outcome. City are the best team in the league right now. The clean sheet was never going to happen. We kind of know that. They've been one of the best defences. Nobody could predict just how much rotation there would be in that City team. We knew there'd be a bit, but maybe not that much. Leeds score an early goal. The red card for Leeds completely changes the game. Leeds go ultra defensively in this game, a playstyle they literally never play. Had there been no red card, I honestly think City would have won. Because Leeds just were playing with every man behind the ball for such a large period of the game. And then Leeds catch City on the break late in the game because City were forced to commit so many men forward. This game was kind of completely out of character for both teams. Dallas scored his 2 goals from an expected goals of something like 0.2, so super low goal scoring opportunities there. Those were his only 2 shots, and they weren't in particularly high quality chances either. He's not even a particularly clinical player, so it's not like, okay, he doesn't need high quality chances to score. Yes, he will pop up with the odd goal, but he's not going to do that every week. It just was on a bit of a mad one. His expected points based on his performance in that game was something like 5.1, and yet he scored 17 points. This game was kind of a huge outlier, and you can say, well, Dallas scored loads of points, so obviously the right decision would have been to keep him. No, because 9 times out of 10 in this game, City kind of score 3-4 goals. Dallas ends up with 1 or even 0 points. 9 times out of 10, things do go the way of the predictions, and that's what channels like this are all about. That's what FPL content is all about. Trying to make those best predictions. You can't predict outliers. You can't predict, randomness that happens in the game. It does happen, but you can't predict it. Yes, sometimes randomness will happen. It's going to make you question the logic. But if you keep making rational decisions over the course of the season, overall, you will do better. Dallas plays Liverpool next. Liverpool's first team as well, rather than City's B team. And, they've got a hell of a lot more to play for, Liverpool have. Dallas, he does occasionally pop up with goals. Now, I'll sort of look through the goals that he's scored this season. They're always against weaker teams, though. Nothing in that Leeds versus City game told me, okay, this is a sign of things to come. Dallas is clearly on one. He's clearly going to be one of the main goal scorers for Leeds. That didn't really, nothing stood out as saying that to me in that particular game. It really was kind of a weird game. If you do have Dallas, keep him, absolutely. He's got some fantastic fixtures later down the line, and he's a great player. But in terms of bringing him in against Liverpool, I just can't see this being a good idea. He's hardly shooting. When he is shooting, they're kind of half-chance pot shots from miles outside the box. that 17-pointer was a fluke. And I know that sounds salty, and genuine congrats to those guys who did have Dallas and get those points. You must have been absolutely buzzing. And those buzzing feelings, by the way, around FPL, that's what FPL is all about. That's why I love FPL, is that excitement of it. So fair play, guys. Absolutely love that. But in terms of moving forward, in terms of those of you who are trying to bring in Dallas, trying to chase those points, it's kind of a bit of a knee-jerk transfer. You can't base your transfers around outliers and flukes, or at least if you do, you will get punished in the long term. Sometimes it will come off, but in the long run, you will get punished. Now, I know a lot of you guys will just ignore everything I've just said because it won't make sense. I get that. Judging the decision, not the outcome, you know, looking for trends versus outliers. It's all a lot, doing all that stuff is kind of a lot less intuitive than just opening up the FPL website or app, looking at those 17 points and thinking, wow, he scored 17 points against Man City, he must be amazing. Kind of doesn't always work like that. But honestly, I wouldn't be doing this channel justice if I didn't tell you my honest opinion on this. And just for the record, I love Dallas. I think he's quality. I've had him for a few weeks before. I'll probably bring him back later on in the season. This next run of fixtures is just not great. Liverpool, Manchester United, Brighton, Spurs. Dallas has got to go down as a controversial avoid. Right, Adama Traoré. This one is a little bit less controversial. And since I've spent half an hour basically talking about Dallas, I'll try and keep this one brief. So Adama Traoré, he scored 1 goal all season. That's it. That's the tweet. Just because that 1 goal happened to be last game week doesn't really change the fact that he's only scored 1 goal. It's just called recency bias. Adama, he's kind of never really been a good goal scorer, really. He's offered a bit of creativity in the past. He's an incredibly likeable guy, but he's just not a goal scorer. And even when the creativity has been there, it's kind of gone dry a little bit recently. Maybe it depends a little bit on Jimenez being there. He did link up well with him last season. But there's been 3 assists all season for Adama. 4.4 million Fulham legend Harrison Reed. He's got the same amount of assists as Traoré. And I honestly think the kind of people who are knee-jerking in Traoré, they'd probably be the same kind of people who would knee-jerk in Reed if Reed scored his first goal of the season. So you can say, okay, well, Wolves have some good fixtures. So what? They have nothing to play for. They're playing against teams fighting for their lives. This Wolves team is without Neto, the creativity of Neto, without the goal-scoring prowess of Jimenez. For 6 million, oh God, I'm going to say it again. For 6 million, you basically get Jesse Lingard. I can't stop talking about the GOAT, can I? But what kind of lunatic is picking Adama Traoré over the GOAT? Not this lunatic, that's for sure. Team Lingard, Team Logic, Team FPL mate, Team, let's do a summary, guys. Let's wrap this up. God, my voice is killing me, guys. I'm so sorry. Ugh, still a little bit ill. But anyway, in conclusion, Lingard. Now, ditch Man City players. Make sure you have Kane. Bring in Son as a second Spurs player if you can at minimum. I do like the look of Greenwood as a nice differential if you fancy it. I'm not looking forward to the reaction to this one, but you know, avoid Dallas. Hopefully there's enough of you guys in the comments section who will agree with me on that one, but we'll see what happens. Let's see where the comments goes. But yeah, there you go, guys. That is the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a like. Really helps out the channel a lot. You guys have no idea. Please subscribe if you're new around here. I would really love that. Check out OneFootball. Check out my Twitter, Instagram, whatever. All the stuff in the description. Go check that out. And aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you tomorrow for my team selection video. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.